Hello swimmers and non-swimmers, another video about someone who has a very special place in the history of swimming in Morecambe Bay. Just line that up a little bit better. A man called Henry Taylor. Henry Taylor was a very gifted, promising swimmer. One of many great swimmers from somewhere called Chadderton near Oldham. The story says that when Henry Taylor was a young lad, his parents had died, leaving him to be brought up by his older brother. I think he's called Bill. And it says that when Henry was young, he loved swimming more than anything else. So much so that he was swimming in canals, reservoirs, boating lakes, anywhere he could get to. And apparently pools back then didn't have the filtration systems they do now, and they had something called dirty water days. Probably not long before they were going to drain all the water and refill it, when it was cheaper to swim. And that's when Henry would apparently do his swimming at the baths, because it was cheaper to get in. Seems to have come from quite an impoverished background, but it said his brother brought him up and I think coached him, and I think he won a swim race when he was young. I'm not sure if that was exactly, it might have been Chadderton, but he'd won a swim race when he was young and carried on. Now, he was in the Navy, and apparently when his boat was anchored, he was swimming around the boat for something to do. He went on to compete in 3 different Olympics, and I think at one he won 3 gold medals, and I think that was the most of any British Olympian up until I think Chris Hoy came along. But obviously a very strong, talented swimmer to go to 3 different Olympic games, compete in his own heats and relay swims. But he came to Morecambe Bay, I'm not sure, early 1900s, the date escapes me, but I think he did plenty of swims across Morecambe Bay, and I think he's either set the record or very close to it. A swim across Morecambe Bay in 2 hours 2 minutes, and you think 9.5, 10 miles in 2 hours 2 minutes, that is just crazy. Obviously the tides and the conditions look like they've been in his favour that day, but still, you know, it's one heck of a swim. And I think I can only imagine that when Henry Taylor turned up with his reputation, the other swimmers were possibly thinking, oh my god, what are we up against here? You know, it's a very interesting tale, the Olympics, swimming across Morecambe Bay many times and winning that, getting some really serious fast times. I think he also played water polo for England, had a really good swimming career. I think from what it sounds like online, he wasn't the most educated of people. That's not, you know, me putting the guy down. I've got nothing but respect for him, but I think his childhood and the way he was brought up and swimming, I don't think as an adult I'm not sure if he could read or write, but you know, in terms of his swimming, he was obviously like an absolute amazing swimmer. It's quite a sad tale at the end, because it says that at some point he apparently ran a pub, I don't know if that was in Chadderton or Oldham, called the Nudger, I think it was called, and I'm sure it got into some sort of financial difficulties, and I think he ended up having to sell or pawn a lot of his medals and trophies to try and make this thing work, which it didn't, and he ended up becoming a pool attendant of all places at Chadderton Baths, you know, where he'd swam as a kid and honed his skills, you know, so he'd come full circle. But it says at the end of his life he was unmarried, penniless, and he died, you know, basically with nothing, which it's really sad, I think, to have had that sort of career and come from that sort of background. And I mean, when you think about this, he's come from quite a poor background, his parents have died, he's raised by his brother, he's swimming in canals, and it did say when he got a job at a cotton mill as a young man, he was going out in his lunch hour swimming in the canal for practice. So, you know, obviously a very dedicated lover of swimming, but he's died in those conditions. But nowadays you think would somebody in these circumstances make it to the Olympics? You know, from a very poor family, not much in the way of prospects, not much in the way of good training facilities, but somehow Henry Taylor managed to rise above all that. I don't know how. Get to 3 different Olympics, join the Navy, you know, play water polo for England, and set probably the fastest time across Morecambe Bay. And he was only a smallish man as well. I think he was about 5'5" tall and around 10 stones in weight. So he wasn't a big, strong, athletic looking man either, you know. But I can only imagine to watch him swimming would have been something to see. You know, the power and the speed he would have had in the water, especially competing somewhere like Morecambe Bay. But he earns a very special place, I think, in Morecambe's very rich swimming history. And again, give a little salute to the life of Henry Taylor.